Hey there, beautiful minds. Grab a seat and get comfy, because today we're diving deep into the ocean of our emotions. Ever wondered why sometimes you feel like you're carrying an emotional backpack chock full of all sorts of feelings, from sadness to stress? First off, how do we even recognize these emotions? That's where self-awareness becomes your best friend. Ever catch yourself snapping at someone for no good reason? Maybe you're not just hangry. Could be that there's a storm cloud of negativity overhead, and just like the weather, you've got to understand the climate before you can pack your emotional umbrella. And how about more mindfulness? Imagine being the serene observer of your own life movie. Not judging, just watching. It gives you this clarity, like a spotlight shining on your thoughts and feelings. Now, does that mean you'll become an overnight Zen master? Heck no. But it's a start to understanding what's going on inside your cranium. Switching gears, let's talk about expressive writing. Picture this. It's midnight, the room's quiet, just you, your thoughts, and a journal. It's not an English exam, folks. It's your personal brain dump. Pour it all onto paper. Ever felt that cathartic release when you jot down your deepest thoughts? It's like an emotional detox. Your journal doesn't judge, it just listens. Isn't that beautiful? But what if writing's not your jam? Good news. Your body can also be your canvas. Ever try yoga or Tai Chi? I'm talking about moving meditation, friends. Imagine if our emotional baggage were like knots in a rope. Activities like yoga, dance, or even a good old gym workout act like fingers that patiently untangle each knot. You move, you breathe, you release. How awesome is that? But hey, nobody said you have to be an emotional lone ranger. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is ask for help. Ring a friend, talk to family, or even consult a professional. Let's debunk the myth. Seeking help isn't a sign of weakness, it's a hallmark of strength. Because tackling your emotions is a team sport, my friends, and every team needs a good support system. Now, what if the blog says, build emotional resilience by developing healthy coping mechanisms? Sure, but let's expand on that. Imagine your life as a video game, and each coping mechanism is an upgrade. Not all are equally effective, right? You've got to level up. Learning to adapt and choose the right coping strategies is not just playing the game, it's mastering your inner game. Think about it. If life were a board game, emotions would be the dice, sometimes predictable but often surprising us. But unlike board games, we have the power to influence the roll of these emotional dice. And guess what? You're the game master here. Ever wondered, how long does it take to release these negative emotions? Well, spoiler alert, it's not an overnight gig. If emotional well-being were as easy as flipping a switch, we'd all be emotional ninjas by now, wouldn't we? Some days you're up and some days you're down, and that's okay. The journey is what builds resilience. Now let's play devil's advocate for a second. The blog encourages self-care practices, and sure, it's great advice. But let's dig deeper. We live in a culture that often commercializes self-care, turning it into a day at the spa or a shopping spree. Nice? Yes. Essential? Maybe not. True self-care can be as simple as saying no when you're stretched too thin or setting boundaries to protect your peace. So the next time someone tells you self-care is selfish, you tell them, no, darling, it's self-preservation. But what about the prompts and guidelines for effective expressive writing the blog talks about? They are useful, but let's remember that the beauty of a journal is that it can be anything you want it to be. If writing about an emotional event feels like ripping off a Band-Aid, maybe start with doodles or poems. Your journal, your rules. You see, the key isn't just knowing these strategies. It's about integrating them into your daily life. Picture your emotional well-being as a garden. Mindfulness is the water. Expressive writing is the fertilizer. Physical activities are the sunshine. And social support is like having a gardening buddy. You can't just water the plants once and expect them to bloom forever. You have to keep at it. And hey, it's okay to have weeds in your garden. We all do. The thing is, you don't have to be a horticultural expert to start planting seeds of happiness, resilience, and well-being. You just have to be willing to get your hands a little dirty, learn from the seasons, and maybe even dance in the rain. Emotional well-being isn't a destination, it's a journey. There will be bumps, forks, and maybe even a few dead ends. But you've got the map, and most importantly, you've got yourself. So, are you ready to set sail on this emotional odyssey? Because remember, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time, today. So, let's discuss emotional well-being and resilience, shall we? We all need a solid emotional toolkit, right? Because let's face it, life loves to throw curveballs. Picture this. You're scrolling through your feed and stumble upon a post that says, "Reach out to friends for support." Sure, sounds easy, but why do we often opt for keeping it bottled up inside? Have you ever paused to wonder about that? Maybe you have, and perhaps you've realized that the toughest step is often acknowledging that you're not the invincible superhero you thought you were. And hey, that's okay. Your kryptonite might be stress, anxiety, or fear, but you're not alone in this fight. We're all in it together. But let's ask another question. How many of us reach for the phone to call a therapist as readily as we reach for that chocolate bar in the middle of the night? Yeah, not many. The blog does a stellar job of pointing out that professional help isn't just an option. Sometimes it's a necessity. A therapist is like that savvy financial advisor for your emotional investments. So, is it time to diversify your emotional portfolio? Imagine if we lived in a world where talking about negative emotions was as casual as discussing the weather. Hey, it's sunny outside, but I'm feeling a bit cloudy today. Now, wouldn't that be something? Validation is not about swimming in a pool of self-pity. It's about realizing it's okay to be not okay. So next time you feel that heavy emotional weight, don't just shove it in a mental closet. Open the door, let it out, have a chat, and maybe share a cup of tea. Now let's talk about that delightful term, emotional resilience. Think of it as your emotional immune system. Just as you wouldn't wait for flu season to start taking your vitamins, you shouldn't wait for a crisis to start building your emotional resilience. Mindfulness, my friends, is not just a trendy hashtag. It's the meditation equivalent of a gym workout for your brain. And yes, you can break a mental sweat. How about hobbies? Remember those? Not scrolling through your social media feed. That's not a hobby. A hobby is something that brings you joy, whether it's painting, playing an instrument, or cooking. Your brain needs a joyous break from the adulting marathon we're all running. It's like taking your mind on a mini vacation, and while we're at it, let's address the elephant in the room, self-care. Contrary to popular belief, self-care is not always about scented candles and bubble baths. Sometimes it's about budgeting, meal planning, and yes, even those dreaded chores. Why? Because taking care of your environment is also a form of taking care of yourself. The promise of standing triumphant on a mountain or a beach, as we saw in the concluding image of the blog. It's inspiring, but let's get real. You won't always be on that mountain. Most days you'll be navigating the busy streets, the crowded subways, and endless meetings. But guess what? The resilience you build daily is what will take you to that mountaintop moment. To be continued, my friends, because the journey of emotional well-being is not a sprint. It's a lifelong marathon. So let's keep the momentum going, shall we? Get out there, embrace your emotions, share your feelings, and build that emotional muscle. Remember, folks, life's too short to be at war with yourself, so arm yourselves with resilience, love, and a good sense of humor. Ready, set, go conquer your emotional universe. Imagine if we approached our emotions like a dedicated botanist labeling new plant species. That's not just sadness. That's a feeling overwhelmed by work and need a break sadness. The nuances matter, folks. Now let's talk stress management techniques. Deep breathing is not just for yoga fanatics. Picture this. You're sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic, and your patience is evaporating faster than a puddle in the Sahara. What if instead of pounding the steering wheel, you took a few deep breaths? It's like giving your brain a shot of espresso, but without the jitters. Have you ever realized how versatile your breath is? It can cool your soup and fan a flame. Similarly, it can calm your mind and energize your spirit. That's what we call a multi-tool. By the way, speaking of resilience, did you ever think that your challenges are like the weights in your emotional gym? No one builds muscle without lifting something heavy, right? Hardships often lead to growth. So think about your trials as personal trainers appointed to buff up your emotional strength. One more emotional push-up. You can do it. What about social connections? No man or woman or non-binary individual is an island. The blog couldn't be clearer on this point. We are social animals. There's a reason solitary confinement is a severe punishment. We are wired to connect. So reach out, and not just when you need something. Be that support for others. A friendship is a two-way street, and you never know who might need you. In the grand tapestry of life, you don't want your emotional thread to be a frail one, snapping at the slightest pull. Weave in threads of love, compassion, resilience, and support. These are not just threads, they're lifelines. And remember, it's okay to borrow some thread from a therapist or a trusted friend. It all circles back to acceptance. No emotion is a permanent resident. They're more like tourists stopping by your mental landscape. Let them visit, take some pictures, but don't let them set up a permanent camp. So keep this in mind as you venture out into the world. Your emotional well-being is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And that starts with us right here, right now, acknowledging our emotional diversity and embracing it. And if you ever feel overwhelmed, remember that resilience is built one step at a time. You don't have to climb the whole staircase today, just take the first step. My friends, life is not about waiting for the emotional storms to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain, and sometimes even splash in the puddles. So, moving on to mindfulness and meditation, right? Those trendy words we see all over Instagram. But imagine if we really got into it. What if our minds were like a smartphone, and mindfulness is like closing all those background apps you're not using? Yeah, it frees up space, makes you function better, and saves you some serious battery drain. Have you ever thought that maybe our heads need decluttering just as much as our garages do? Expressive writing. There's an intriguing point. What if instead of texting your ex at 2 a.m., you wrote down your feelings in a journal? Imagine, instead of unleashing your emotional typhoon onto someone else, you let the paper absorb it. It's like emotional recycling, making art out of your feelings. I've read research that says writing about your emotional experiences can have therapeutic effects. You know what I mean? This isn't just fluff, it's backed by science. And let's talk about physical exercise. Raise your hands if you've ever felt better after a run, a swim, or even a vigorous dance-off with your reflection in the mirror. Your body isn't just a temple, it's a chemistry lab. Physical activities like yoga, running, and dancing get those endorphins pumping, turning your body into your very own pharmaceutical company, minus the side effects and the bills. So the golden question: how long does it take to release negative emotions? Well, how long does it take to learn a musical instrument, to master a new language? Let's be real. There's no one-size-fits-all here. It's like baking. Some cakes take longer to rise, especially if you keep opening the oven door to check. Patience, my friends, patience. But wait, we're social creatures. Ever noticed how you could be upset, but the minute you talk it out with a friend, it's as if someone's lifted a 50-pound weight off your shoulders? That's emotional weightlifting, my friends, and it's a team sport. You are your community, and your community is you. There's a reason humanity rhymes with community. Well, almost if you squint a bit. Also, here's a curveball. What if some of those negative emotions have a message for us? Anger, for instance, is an excellent boundary setter. It's your inner security guard saying, hey, something's not right here. So next time, instead of muting your emotional security guard, how about giving him a high five? Now we've got all these methods for coping: meditation, expressive writing, physical exercise, talking to friends. But how do we know which method suits us best? It's like standing in the ice cream aisle. Too many flavors can be overwhelming. The answer is simple. Sample, sample, sample. No one's keeping score. This is your emotional well-being we're talking about, not a competition. You know how we often say, I should have trusted my gut. What if our emotions, even the pesky negative ones, are just our gut trying to speak to us, but in a language we've forgotten how to understand? They say that emotions are the language of the soul. Well, it's about time we became fluent, don't you think? Speaking of fluency, the blog talks about cultivating emotional resilience through practices like positive thinking. There's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot, positive thinking. But let me tell you, positive thinking isn't just about slapping a smiley face sticker over your check engine light. It's not denial, it's dialect. You're translating your experiences into a language that serves you. There's a power in rephrasing, in choosing words that lift you up instead of weighing you down. That's your narrative, and you're the one holding the pen. Let's segue a little, shall we? You've probably heard of emotional intelligence, right? It's that ability to not just understand and manage your own emotions, but to be attuned to the emotions of those around you. This isn't just a skill, my friends, it's a superpower. But the blog didn't delve into how managing your own negative emotions makes you a better emotional translator for others. If you can navigate your own emotional jungle, imagine how much more prepared you'll be to help someone else lost in theirs. Now, the blog also talks about professional help, and I want to put a pin on that. You see, there's no shame in reaching out for help ever. Imagine if we treated our emotional health like our dental health, regular checkups, cleanups, and the occasional filling to patch up holes and avoid more damage. Yeah, that's right. I'm saying therapists are the dentists of the soul, cleaning out the emotional plaque built up over years. And what if you're one of those people who say, "But I've tried everything, and nothing works"? Ah, my friend, remember, you're a complex cocktail of thoughts, memories, and feelings. Maybe it's not about what you're trying, but how you're combining them. It's like cooking. Sometimes it's about getting the right mix of ingredients, and sometimes adding a pinch of something unexpected to bring out the flavor. So, do you feel a little more enlightened? A little more eager to embrace even those less than pleasant emotions? Remember, we're all on this wild ride together, navigating through storms and sunsets alike. And as we wrap up this chapter, I promise you, the story is far from over. Because in this journey of emotional exploration, every ending is simply a cliffhanger, leading us to the next big revelation. Ah, life. What a plot twist, eh? And we've been on quite an emotional roller coaster today, haven't we? But remember, every ride has to come to a stop, only so you can jump on another one. Life is brimming with these opportunities to learn, grow, and most importantly, to feel. Have you ever thought about how extraordinary it is that we get to experience such a vast range of emotions? It's like having a limitless palette of colors to paint our life's masterpiece. So, what's your next move? Are you going to dust off that old journal you've been neglecting and pour your heart out on its pages? Maybe you'll finally give that deep breathing exercise a try, or call up an old friend for an emotional heart-to-heart. The possibilities are as limitless as your emotions themselves. The key is to stay curious about yourself. What makes you tick? What makes your heart swell with joy or tighten with anxiety? And then, my friends, be excited to apply what you've learned today to transform those feelings into your own personal guidebook for life. And as always, stay informed. Knowledge isn't just power, it's emotional freedom. The more you know, the more tools you have at your disposal to craft a life that's not just lived, but profoundly felt. But don't worry, this isn't a goodbye, it's merely a see you later. I'm already buzzing with anticipation about what we're going to explore next time. Until then, apply what you've absorbed today, test the waters, fail, pick yourself up, succeed, and learn. This emotional journey we're on, it never really ends, it only gets more captivating. So until our paths cross again in this grand adventure of life, stay curious, stay excited, and as always, my friends, stay marvelously, unabashedly informed.